Bison Media Zone on WDAY Extra.
And welcome everybody to the Bison Media Zone. We do it each and every Wednesday at 10:35 on WDAY Extra. Getting ready for a trip to Sioux Falls and the Summit League basketball tournament back again. It's been there since 2009, at the Premier Center since 2015, and we look forward to the first games getting going today. The North Dakota State men play tomorrow at 6. The North Dakota State women play tomorrow at 2:30. Look who we dug out of mothballs to join us here. Our basketball analyst who joins us at each and every broadcast on Extra. We woke up in California this morning, one Greg Stemen. What's going on, my man? How are you?
I'm doing well. I appreciate the opportunity to visit with you.
Well, before we get into all predictions and all that kind of good stuff, the awards came out. So what do we make of Carson Johnson winning the Men's Player of the Year? Because that's been the hot button for anybody that follows the league, is that a guy who finished with a record of 8-8 was the League Player of the Year.
Yeah, it always, that's what these awards are for, is to debate and kind of either stand your ground or you criticize. I struggle with it. I mean, without a doubt, is he a first team all league guy? No, nobody argues that, and he's earned that. And I think sometimes, and whether people want to admit it or not, I think Player of the Year awards sometimes also are in some way a reflection of your team success. And that's why when I went through and considered, and I had a vote, and I know you did too, Dom, I'm not going to criticize people who voted for Carson Johnson. He's incredibly talented, and Denver will be lucky to have him on their team next year.
Yeah, yes.
But I narrowed it down. You know, NDSU is a victim of their own success in some ways. Their balance, without anybody averaging over 13 points a game, 4 guys in double figures. It was hard for me. I personally voted for Minnesota.
Yeah.
And I think there were probably 3 or 4 guys, and I think Travion Carson was in that conversation. I'm not going to criticize anybody. I understand, but there's different rationale, and there's no standard protocol, right, Dom?
Yep.
Everybody kind of picks their own rationale.
Here's the first team: Travion Carson, North Dakota State; Paul Jobet, who we saw scored 38 in person for Omaha against the Bison; Cameron Fens, their big man from USD, 6'10" guy who was great in the middle for the Coyotes; Nick Janowski, the transfer from Nebraska, was on the first team. You mentioned Carson Johnson, and then Nolan Milasali. I have no bones at all, Greg, with any of those guys. I thought that was my first team. I did vote for Carson Johnson. And I did it begrudgingly, knowing exactly what you just said, that the feedback is the way it is. Minnesota was great. I just thought seeing Johnson up close, and I saw him at Moorhead last year, and what he did against the Bison, lost 1 home game in conference play. He was phenomenal in that game. That's why he got my vote.
And those are fair. That's fair rationale. Anybody who says, no, you're wrong because of this and this, it's not accurate, because we all have our own rationale.
Correct.
We've all watched a lot of basketball. Yep. And I think it makes for a great discussion, and that's what these guys deserve. You know, all these guys that won these awards, they deserve to be talked about. They deserve to be discussed.
The only thing I will say they're wrong on, Andy Stefanowicz should have been on the first team. I thought he was the Bison MVP. I had him on the first team. He only got honorable mention. That, to me, I was shaking my head over.
I don't disagree with you, Dom, and we talked about it a little bit off air. You and I had the great opportunity, the great pleasure to see him up close and personal for all his home games. And we gained an appreciation of how he elevated not only his play throughout the course of the season, but the play of his teammates, and put his teammates in great positions to be successful. And you know what? We're not wrong for having that appreciation. I had him ranked very high in my all-conference selections as well.
Give us the lowdown. The Bison swept the Coaches Award, which typically goes, if you win the league, you're typically going to be the Coach of the Year. But describe the job both that Dave Richmond and Jory Collins did this year.
Well, I'll start with Jory. I think, without question, I think he's earned that award. They won the conference regular season title outright. And to kind of wrestle that away from Aaron Johnson and South Dakota State, that says a lot about how he's built this program. And in a lot of ways, I think he's emulated what AJ's done at South Dakota State. And when you can kind of find a way to beat them at their place, granted, they lost late to SDSU, which you and I have talked about. Personally, I think it takes a lot of pressure off NDSU. They can go out and just play their tails off if they have an opportunity to play them again. So I think it's a well-deserved honor for Jory Collins. Dave Richmond, I think you and I have had on-air discussions and off-air discussions about the state or the current environment that college basketball is. And we talked about this, I think, after the last home game. I don't know that anybody did a better job of going into the portal and doing plug and play than Dave Richmond did, and then increasing their depth. I think when you look at the highest ranking guys for NDSU, it's their perimeters. It's Stefanowicz, it's Damari Wheeler-Thomas, Travion Carson, great guard play, and then Noah Feddersen.
Yeah.
Embracing his role. Dave Richmond pressed that button at just the right time, puts Trayson Anderson in, Feddersen comes off the bench, and all it does is make NDSU better. So I don't know that there's a lever Dave pulled this season that didn't work.
Let me talk more about Feddersen. He won the Sixth Man of the Year award. He had started every game for the last 2.5 years. Prior to that game, the conference opener, I looked at you as they're hosting South Dakota on New Year's Eve. I'm like, all right, well, Feddersen had been scuffling up to that point. Trayson Anderson was playing tremendous. And boy, did that move pay off.
It did. Both guys embraced it, and both guys stepped into those new roles, and NDSU became a better, more prolific basketball team in the Summit League. And when we talk about how Trayson Anderson kind of had a breakout game against USD, that was against Fens, an all-league guy who who really got a lot better over the course of the season. And so, no, I think he's handled this well. NDSU had some minor dings that, because of their depth, they were able to handle, and it didn't throw them off kilter. So, no, I think Dave really earned that award throughout the course of this season.
All right, let's put you on the record here. We're going to throw out the men's bracket. Give me who's playing on Sunday night in the championship game.
Well, I'm going to go with the top two seeds.
Okay.
I just think I think NDSU and St. Thomas are the two most complete teams, and don't think and that's a lot, because you have talked about 4, 5, and 6 are all 8 and 8.
Yes.
You had some teams playing well, and by the way, who has the longest winning streak heading into the tournament on the men's side? Of course, it's Oral Roberts.
Yes.
Yeah. So and I always think that 1-8 game when you're the top seed is scary, and especially if ORU is playing well, if they're able to get Kansas City, I think Dave will have his guys ready. That's my prediction. It's hard because any of those teams, the Omahas, the Denvers, are capable of beating anybody.
That Denver UND game is the late game Friday. Sign me up for that one. That could be scary for Sather's team has been great defensively, but if you got to stop Carson Johnson in a one-game, that's going to be awfully hard to do.
It is, and the strength of UND's defense is their ability to kind of double in unpredictable ways. Yeah. Well, don't think for a second they're not going to be trying to get the ball out of Carson Johnson's hands, and can he deliver to his teammates, set his teammates up for success? I think he's shown he can, but can he do it throughout the course of 40 minutes?
And both Friday games, Greg, because Omaha and South Dakota should be a great game. USD won both games against Omaha this year. That's the first game Friday night, and that will be a barn burner in my mind.
It will, and I think that some USD fans, the way the USD team and Coach Peterson kind of found a way to overcome just hurdle after hurdle and put themselves in this position, you got to hope there's some red in the stands for USD, that they get out and support them.
Well, one last thing before we go to the women, because that late game tomorrow night is St. Thomas and SDSU, and the Jacks are the underdog, and yet they'll have a huge crowd. That's a heck of an opener for St. Thomas to walk into tomorrow night.
It really is, and all those fans that are showing up early for the SDSU game, who are they pulling for in that Omaha USD game? That can kind of turn some momentum. It's going to be interesting.
We know that. Avery Kunin obviously was, I think, a slam dunk pick, in my opinion, to win Summit League Player of the Year award. First time the Bison have done that since Lisa Bew won it way back in 2008. Your thoughts on what Avery did this year for the Bison women?
I think that the best way to describe her is she just continues to grow. She's not satisfied. We had the great opportunity to run into her parents, who I've known for a long time. And first of all, they've raised a great young lady. And second of all, her just willingness to be coached. And you've addressed this, Dom. Jory Collins isn't the easiest guy to play for, and that's not a criticism. but he has put together the type of team that can respond to the manner in which he coaches. Avery Coonan is a perfect example of that. Her continued growth and her willingness to be a great teammate. I think that can't be overlooked either.
So you mentioned this in break and just brought it up about the Bison game last Wednesday night, losing to South Dakota State. And if everything goes according to chalk, they're going to play again. Now, granted, the atmosphere, Greg, is going to be way different. It'll be 10,000 South Dakota State fans in Sioux Falls. How do the Bison prepare for that? Because that's even a harder environment in my mind than what Brookings is, and they won in Brookings to the Bison back in January.
Yeah, it's a fair question, and I think first of all they've got to kind of get themselves under control and get that first one behind them. And it could be your in-state rival, for goodness sakes.
Could be.
Played you tough for a while. And that's something that NDSU has to be prepared. I think this team is mature enough, though, to understand the importance of each and every possession, each and every game. But you go back to the game on Wednesday, and I watched every minute of every game? No, but I've watched enough of the NDSU women to say that was a different team I saw out there. I didn't think they were quite as confident as I'd seen them in critical moments, especially the last 8 to 10 minutes in Brookings in front of a big crowd. Yep. I watched that team go. I haven't seen an NDSU women's team with this type of composure in a long time. They've got it in them. And I think there were some extenuating circumstances with the SDSU game. And Jory Collins has made no excuses. SDSU came in and just flat out beat them. But I also think NDSU, you never want a loss, Dom. No coach ever does. But if one were to be maybe the right timing and take some pressure off you, I think that one did for NDSU. They can just sit down there and go, yep, you're right. South Dakota State's the favorite. We're going to go play our tails off. And we'll look up at the end of the tournament, see if it was good enough.
Collins said yesterday that Jossie Schiller, would basically, she'd have to fight him to keep him off the court. So it sounds like that Jossie's going to be back playing, which I think we all assumed as well. We talked about that on the air on Saturday, that we expect she did not play against UND, that more precautionary, that she's going to be ready to go for the Summer League tournament starting tomorrow.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And it was the right move because they weren't sure of the severity. Why risk anything? Why take any chances? And some different people I thought stepped up. But I agree. If there's one person I'd be more afraid of than Jory Collins, it would be Jossie Schiller if Jory had to tell her she wasn't playing.
It's great to see you, bud. Thanks so much for doing this. Enjoy watching it, and I'll catch up with you soon, okay?
Thanks, my friend. You take care.
There he goes. Greg Stemen, our analyst on all of our college basketball games this year. Great to catch up with Greg. And as we mentioned, it all begins coming up later today, 4:30, with that Omaha UND game. The winner of that will play the Bison women tomorrow at 2:30. We'll break. We come back. How about a little exclusive interview with the head football coach at Hawaii? We got that. We'll play it for you when we come back. Welcome back here on the Bison Media Zone. That's a look at Hawaii's football complex as their temporary home for their new stadium is open in 2029. How do we get this video? Great question. Intrepid reporter, First News anchor Lisa Bedeau is in Hawaii with the cast of thousands from WDAY at a travel adventure this week. And lo and behold, got over to the football stadium as they're in the midst of their spring practice. Actually, the Rainbow Warriors are about to wrap up spring ball here in the not-too-distant future, but apparently got some media availability with the head football coach of Hawaii, one Timmy Chang, who was a great player at Hawaii. Lisa asked about matching up. Now we know the Bison are going to Hawaii. Here's an interview that Lisa got with the head football coach of the Rainbow Warriors.
Excited, really excited. I think when you can add a very historical, proud, winning tradition program to a Mountain West conference like what we've been in, you just continue to add value. And I'm very excited for the teams that are coming in to just experience it. And it must be exciting for the community of Fargo and becoming FBS and then coming into a conference like the Mountain West. And so I think it's just overall, I think very, very proud both ways.
So you were familiar with NDSU. What do you know about the Bison?
Championships. And, and I played in 2000, and one of the similar teams was Boise State as they made their run into, and you can see where Boise State and how great of a program they are. but it has the same makings of, a traditionally winning program with championships and championship pedigree coming into a conference. Back then it was the WAC, but this year to be the Mountain West. And so, it's competitive. I personally been in this Mountain West coaching, this Mountain West, 5 years at Nevada, now going into my 5th year here at the University of Hawaii. And every game is just competitive. And so, you love to see, every week how the teams compete, but also when you get a team like North Dakota State that comes into the conference, it's just going to add that much more juice and competitiveness to every game and every week.
Okay, so for both players and fans, what can we expect? Bison fans do follow. They travel, and they're very excited to come here, obviously. What should they expect? Number one, let's start with the players.
Yeah. Just from our program, we represent a state. And so there's 8 islands involved. There's one university and football is it. And so when they come here, they'll see the passion from the players. The players understand that, what they're playing for and why they're playing for. Half of our team is made up of guys from here, and then the other half are made up of guys from all over the country. So, and world in that sense. But just very passionate players about their program and who they represent.
Okay, how about fans making the trip? This is, quite a ways away from Fargo, North Dakota.
Sure. I believe they will have an unbelievable time. All right, I think the Aloha spirit, they'll experience the Aloha spirit if they haven't, and what that means, and it's just very respectful. I think what we start off here is we the locals here, the people here are all about respect for the land, respect for the language, respect for the culture, respect for people, family. And so when you give those things, you get those things. And, it's a beautiful place, but even more so, the people are beautiful. And so when they come here, they're going to have a great time. They're going to wonder why people are so nice. That's the Aloha spirit. But then on top of that, they'll get to see some really good football.
There's Lisa Bedeau's conversation with Timmy Chang. We thank Lisa for giving us that. That was fantastic. And already, I think, and he was one of the few that spoke about this. Jason Eck did as well, right after the Bison got admitted into the league, about the excitement level that he had for North Dakota State coming in. A couple things on Hawaii, because I think everyone's focused on travel, everyone's focused on the destination. Their team is good. Their quarterback, Micah Alahado, left-hander, could have left and could have got a ton of money in the portal. He decided to return. He was the freshman of the year in the Mountain West. He's likely going to be the preseason pick for Offensive Player of the Year in the conference. He's that good a player. So Timmy Chang's got things rolling like when he was playing in Hawaii. They were routinely really, really good. They won 9 games a year ago. They won the Hawaii Bowl on Christmas Eve last year against Cal. That's going to be, regardless, whatever you want to say about the destination, which is exciting, and leaving the Continental 48 and all that. If you want to let's just talk football, because I think we haven't done enough of that, because I think, frankly, we're still figuring out who's who in this league. Hawaii's good. That's going to be a super difficult game just on the field for the Bison, and matching up with the talent that they have at the quarterback spot, with the wide receiver spot. They've got some speed. That's just different than what we have not seen in the Missouri Valley Football Conference. It's just fact. And that's going to be on repeat when we say that for teams in Hawaii, Wyoming, Nevada, New Mexico, San Jose State. I mean, you name it. That's going to be kind of the theme for the Bison going into this upcoming year. It's exciting, but it's just unknown. And you can get focused on, the nice weather and bigger stadiums, all that. But actually, when the game is happening, what do they have out there? And I'm going to tell you right now, 3 of these teams have elite quarterbacks. New Mexico does. Hawaii does. UNLV certainly does. After that, not sure about the rest of the league. At least those 3 we know, those guys can ball. That's going to be something that Bison defense will have to try and stop this upcoming fall. Good stuff there. Our thanks to Lisa getting that interview with Timmy Chang. Again, a reminder, Summer League Tournament starts later today. Bison men play tomorrow night at 6, Bison women at 2:30. We'll see who's going dancing. We'll leave you with the best video of the week. Bison left tackle Ryan Babbitt's cleaning 400 pounds as they get ready for spring practice. Thanks for watching, everybody, on the Bison Media Zone. We're back next Wednesday at 10:30. We'll see you then.